Congressman Adam Kinzinger of the great state of Illinois and the Foreign Affairs Committee. Thanks, one and all, for being here. Finally, let me just ask you, like, now that the speech has been given, what is the reception like in the Middle East?
So I think there are two key takeaways from the speech. One, which is really powerful, the president talked about the ideas that underlie extremism. I think it's really important he put that out there. He also said, I'll do what it takes to make this happen, to defeat ISIS and the ideology. That's really powerful. The other key takeaway is that he spoke to the people in that room. He was speaking to the 50 Muslim-majority nations in that room. He was not speaking to Muslims around the world. Everything that he said he wanted to do was good, but it was from the top down. He wasn't asking for change from the bottom up. And in order to fight the ideology, you have to get the people in the communities to actually work with you. So there's a disconnect there in terms of the premise of what he said and how he's actually going to do things.
Although I would argue it's not a disconnect, because I think a lot of the are fomenting a lot of the problems that we're having. I mean, we talked, earlier about Saudi Arabia. I mean, speaking to the Saudis about, having more liberalization within their country, not promoting, radical forms of Islam. And those are, I think, to me, those were positive. This speech was better than I thought it was going to be, from all the hype that this was going to be more of a conciliatory speech and a very big change. He did have some very strong lines, particularly at the end of the speech, that I thought was good. But it was balanced. I mean, I would have given a tougher speech. I was hoping for a tougher speech, but I thought it was a very balanced speech, and I was overall pleased.
And there have been some disputes within Trump world about the speech. Let me put up a tweet from Roger Stone, one of President Trump's confidants. He was not happy with the stagecraft of the trip. He writes, candidly, this is the picture of the president getting an award from the King of Saudi Arabia. Candidly, this makes me want to puke. And then it says hashtag Jared's idea. Really, probably, honestly, the trip having at least more to do, I think, at least equal parts to do with H.R. McMaster, the president's national security advisor, as Jared Kushner, but he definitely played a role. But that is some serious shade thrown at Jared.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, this is, I think, Roger Stone's attempt to try to be relevant and make it in the news cycle. I don't think anybody really takes him seriously. I don't, at least. I see that. I mean, how are you going to get an award from the king? Does he have to actually then stand on a crate so that you don't have to bow and he can lower down upon you?
The president is 6'3" or 6'4", yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's silly. But, I think the great thing, by the way, about what's going on in Saudi Arabia largely, I was very frustrated during the presidential campaign when we talked about how to defeat ISIS, and you had, for instance, Ted Cruz say, I'll just carpet bomb them till the sand glows. The reality is now this is, I think, a recognition of the fact that, yes, there is a military component to defeating terrorism, but there is a component of this is not going to be defeated by the United States of America. It'll be defeated by the Muslim world rejecting the ideology of extremism, and it'll be defeated by taking that next generation of kids, the 7- and 8-year-olds, giving them education, giving them opportunity, and they can reject the recruits from ISIS that come into their camps and say, come on.
I actually agree.
33 minutes that he is standing in front of dozens of Arab leaders, talking, his first major speech to this world. I can point out 1,000 things I wish were in the speech, but the speech would have been 4 hours long then. I think what the president did was say, look, we have to destroy radical terrorism. We have to unite. I think behind the scenes is the appropriate time to be very effective and say, look, the Crown Prince is trying some serious reforms right now in Saudi Arabia. This is a very tough culture to move. It's not like they can just institute reforms and not expect there to be some consternation. So they're in a measured going forward approach, but I think behind the scenes is when you make the strong case. When you're in front of 50 leaders is not the time to point out Saudi Arabia, but it's a time to unite folks together.
We're going to take a very... Congressman, what do you think?
I actually agree. There's something interesting that happens. So as a member of Congress in the Foreign Affairs Committee, you travel a lot and you do, in essence, kind of fact-finding / diplomacy. A member of Congress, obviously, it's nothing like the president coming to a country. But the second you land and you get off that plane and you meet with government leaders, the reality of what you're doing sets in. You're like, wow, everything I say here has an impact. This has a real impact on the future of the war on terror, for instance, the future of our alliances. And, with that impressive show that the Saudis gave President Trump, I'm actually really proud of that. As an American exceptionalism that believes in American strength around the globe, to see that level of respect for, it's not just President Trump, it's for the American people from Saudi Arabia, I think that's fantastic. And then with this word change, I agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying Islamic terrorism. But if this is going to create controversy and unify everybody behind kind of American leadership, great. And I think we need to recognize